Hey everyone, and welcome to 121 Overlord. What is this, you may ask? This is the first of a new thing. This is kind of a spin-off to the other 121s that we've got, being in Flux and Gigawatts. And the idea with this is that we are going to talk about a movie. It's going to be me and Matt, and this is kind of the pilot episode to see if this works. If it doesn't, we'll probably still do something like this. But the idea is that this will be a once a month thing. This one was not, but future episodes, the movie will be a vote on Patreon for our patrons to vote for. But the idea of Overload is that we pick a movie to talk about, or in this case, pick for the vote for patrons to vote for, that one of us either loves or will likely love, and the other one hates or will likely hate. In this case, it's a film that I'd already seen and knew I liked, and this was one that Matt had not seen but he expected to hate, because previous attempts for Matt to watch a David Lynch film have not went smoothly.
Swimmingly.
Yes. So
We both went with the S word there. That's word. That's yeah.
you know, to relate it to part of the subject of the film, I think it's we both had similar thoughts, but we went in different sides of the same coin. So yeah, we're going to talk about Blue Velvet, which is and the fact that Matt gave me a funny face at that comment means I'm probably going to have to explain what I meant by that when we actually talk about the movie.
Yep.
So, Blue Velvet, of course, David Lynch movie. It was probably his big mainstream hit of... Maybe his only big mainstream hit. I'm not actually...
Well, unless you count Elephant Man, which it really isn't a David Lynch movie. You know, like...
It's a David Lynch film, but yes, it's not...
Yeah. It's missing a lot of those things, which is probably why I like it more than the rest of his that I've seen.
I like Elephant Man as well a lot. It's definitely not Lynchian, to use that
No.
term. Although, I want to try and avoid that. I feel like just saying something's Lynchian is a really lazy way of... rather than actually saying why it's Lynchian, you just say, oh, it's Lynchian, and just rub it off.
Yeah, it's like Hitchcockian gets into that too.
Yeah.
Where
And I'm
people
guilty.
just drop it and...
And I'm guilty of it. I've done it.
Well, but see, I feel when you use it around film people that are, well versed in certain things, Hitchcockian has a different meaning than to those that are at the, base level of movie watching. Like, my wife, she might pick up on something being Hitchcockian. I was going to say my mother-in-law, but she loves Alfred Hitchcock, so that wouldn't have worked.
I like how you took a second to just like, okay, who do I want to throw under the bus?
Yeah.
I'm picking a family member. I need to pick wisely.
Yeah.
So you can also tell that he's not expecting his wife to watch this later.
No. Well, let me just say, watching Blue Velvet with her, it was half through. Her walking in half through, yeah, she was not having it. So,
oh dear.
Yeah.
So yeah, how is this? It's going to be similar to our usual conversations you've seen in the other movie shows, but yeah. So I'll get Matt sort of, since he's not seen it, I want his kind of overall impression without spoilers. That'll be kind of quick, and then we'll probably just dive into spoilers after that. I'll give you a warning, just like a proper heads up when we get there, but that'll probably be quite soon. So, what is Blue Velvet? Blue Velvet is a thriller starring Kyle MacLachlan, who plays Jeffrey. I got the name wrong. That's
Jeffrey.
good. Off to a good start. He plays Jeffrey, who is home because his father is gotten sick, and he comes back to this, idealistic, almost 50s Americana. I mean, it's set present day, but it's very reminiscent of 50s, like white picket fence, all that kind of American dream, that kind of style.
Well, even the intro there is very 50s because the song that they chose, it plays up to that, and which I, from what I hear, is a thing that Lynch likes to do, is play with the, so this is, it's already batting 100 for Lynch with me.
This is. You know what? The thing is, though, is that Blue Velvet is pretty accessible Lynch. This is nothing.
This is what I'm realizing, because it was a lot more watchable than Mulholland Drive.
Yeah,
I was calling Mulholland Falls, which is a different movie.
Yeah,
but
if you want to go full Lynch, you go watch Inland Empire and see if you survive the experience. But right now, this is pretty accessible Lynch.
Pass.
So he finds an ear, which he takes to a detective. And this mystery starts to boil in, and he ends up befriending Laura Dern, who plays Sandy, the detective's daughter. and she's overheard some things, and that leads him to one of the sort of the persons of interest in the case and what might be going on. And what kind of begins is this sort of weird relationship with this woman who might be a victim of some evil person. I'll just say,
definite a femme fatale. Like, and not. I don't want to trust the fatale part, but she has this mystery to her that what you see is not what's going on at the base level. So,
which is kind of what the movie's about overall, is that it's about, okay, everything seems perfect on the surface, but there is this darker underbelly of things going on.
Yep.
And that's really what it's about. And it's about Jeffrey kind of navigating that and sort of going deeper into that rabbit hole and how that affects him. And ultimately, of course, the thriller kind of goes on its own path as well in terms of reaching that conclusion, which is kind of the tropes that it's playing with. So you expected to hate this because it's David Lynch. So here's the moment of truth. Matt, how do you feel about Blue Velvet?
I didn't hate it, but it's like, it's nothing I'm going to ever watch again. It's a notch on the film belt. I did like the noir aspects to it. Like, again, you have the Dorothy character as a femme fatale, and you even have Jeffrey as this amateur investigator, because a lot of what he does is he's on his own. Like, he doesn't have the backing of any police.
Yeah, it's very... he's a very kind of... You almost get the feeling like he's almost like a little kid in there, where he's like this curiosity. He wants to just sort of do things, and regardless of what the rules are, and you kind of feel that childlike wonder about him.
But once this movie starts getting into that weird Lynch thing, I found myself tuning out and then forcing myself back in, because there's things that happen, and I'm just like, what is... Am I dreaming this? Is this really going on? Like, so I looked to my wife going, you're seeing this, right? She's like, yeah, there's a guy singing a song just out of the blue. I said, okay. But thanks to this movie, I learned what surrealist actually means. And that's probably the better way to describe Lynch for me, is he's a surrealist filmmaker.
Well, here's something that I've always loved about Lynch, is he captures... I don't think Lynch ever intends to set out to make something that feels gritty and realistic. That's not his MO. Lynch does this thing where he, even in this, where it's still very mostly straight, like compared to like I say, Inland Empire is complete mishmash of stuff. Mulholland Drive's of course very surreal, but all of them, and even this one, they have this feeling like they feel kind of like a dream. There's like a dreamlike quality to them, where things are kind of heightened. And like we say, like the openings, like the white picket fence, the fireman's going past, he's hanging off the fire truck and he's waving as if life is happy, life is good, and then there's these darker things underneath. But when stuff starts happening, when stuff gets dark, when bad stuff starts happening, when Jeffrey's in danger, it feels like he's descending into hell. You think there's no hope for him. It feels like it's turned into a nightmare. It really has that feeling to it.
Yeah, it's desperate for sure.
Yeah. And I think, combined with the surrealist and that dreamlike quality, Lynch also does suspense very well. Whenever there's those long, cause he's very good at like drawing out moments where you're worried about what's going to happen next. What's the character about to do? As the villain who's very erratic and very unpredictable, is he going to do X thing next? And it's very... Lynch is an experience. Actually, funny thing, before we get to like the sort of the bulk of this with the spoilers, I do want to mention that it's funny that you picked this one for this pilot, for this test. This one of us hates something, one of us loves something, and because Blue Velvet honestly is not my favorite Lynch movie. It's not even probably my top 3 Lynch movies. It's actually somewhere in the middle of the pack. That said, I hadn't watched it in a while, and I did like it even more after this viewing. For the record, Mulholland Drive is my favourite, just for the record.
I knew that, because I love giving you grief about that one.
Oh, so good.
No. Not really.
So good. So good. Anyway, so I'll give the spoiler warning so we can talk freely without worrying about things. So, like I say, so full spoilers. The movie, again, it's like this idealistic world. We don't know his father yet, but this is Jeffrey's father, who's like, he's got the garden hose, he's watering the lawn.
So it looked like he had a heart attack, or he starts gripping at his neck.
Yeah.
And so that's our introduction to him. And then after that, we get this...
Before you get to that, though, even in that opening scene, we see all this, white picket fence, the roses, the lilies,
Uh-huh.
the fire truck. But there is a shot where the camera goes under the ground, and
That's
we
what
see,
I was gonna get to.
yeah,
All
we,
the
we see the ants and the bugs, and you know,
Yeah.
again, the movie's telling you this is what this movie is. Everything seems
Mm-hmm.
perfect, but there's a darker underworld going on, and that's what
I
the movie's going to be about
during
exploring.
that scene I went, what the hell is this all about? Because we're like 3 minutes into the movie
Yeah, it's right
at
to the
this
start.
point,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, what? Okay, and then the movie kicks
Do
off.
you know what it is? It's, you know how when you write an essay or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, and you write your opening paragraph is meant to be an introduction that just encapsulates what the whole thing's going to be about. That's
Yeah.
what this opening 3 minutes
It sets
is.
the tone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wonderful, and so Jeffrey goes back to town. His father's in the hospital, in the bed, all sort of hooked up to machines and whatnot. And it's when he's walking home from the hospital that he sees this ear. And again, this is where for me I mean, obviously the opening is very surreal in the sense that it feels too perfect. Like it's very manufactured feeling, which is kind of the point. It's like
Right.
it's a facade of what's actually going on. But it's the fact that he picks up this severed ear. He doesn't just call the police and they can come up and like see it in its
Yeah.
like crime scene location. He picks it up. He
He
takes it.
pockets it. Yeah. No one gross.
It's gross. It's gross. But I think this right away, it's telling you that he has this inner fascination about the darker world. Like he's like, oh, this is. He's not scared by it. He's like curious. He's like he wants
No,
to know
because
more.
he's left the town and come back because of his dad, right? Like, right. So, and when he picks up the ear, it's like covered with like bugs. So there the bugs are again. Like, it's infested with this. It's nasty. So yeah, but he pockets it. That was the second moment where I go, did he just pocket the ear? Like he's just gonna grab it and take it? Oh, okay.
Oh man, I almost wish I had the camera on you while you were watching
Yeah.
this, just so I could intercut some of your reactions,
Uh-huh.
sparse throughout,
Oh.
just to.
Wait till we get to Frank Booth.
Do you know what the amazing thing about Frank is? He doesn't even show up until like 45 minutes into the movie.
No. So my main fascination with this comes from another film podcast I listen to that I've listened to for years, and their outgoing when they wrap up the show is we're doing it for Van Gogh, and I had always known that it had come from Blue Velvet, and they talk about Frank Booth, and so I've had this fascination with this movie, but I've never, wanted to look. It's kind of like watching a horror movie through your fingers, where like I know it's there, I'm kind of familiar with it, but I'm safe on this side. So I was expecting Frank to be a major character, and then he doesn't show up until well into half the movie.
I think that's a credit to how it's written, how the character's written, and then Dennis Hopper's performance. That I think he still feel like he's so important to what's going on. It's just that he is the kind of this unseen force. That's another thing that I think Lynch does very well, and it's something that infuriates a lot of people. Obviously the new season of Twin Peaks is on. A lot of people are talking about how long it's taken to get to things and things that are happening off screen. And I think a lot of the thing that builds fear with Frank in this movie is that he is on scene a lot of the time. You're worried about him coming back. We see, there's that great big showing of what type of person he is the first time you see him. And then, he's gone for a while. We see glimpses of him. And then when he appears again, and and he sees Jeffrey, and he's like, oh shit. Like, because up until that point in the movie, he doesn't even know Jeffrey exists. But then he sees him, and you're worried. You're like, oh god, what is he going to do to him? Like, Jeffrey's screwed.
Because he's a predator, and you're just like, well, and we know, and he looks at Jeffrey like he's prey, not like he's something to be worried about.
And yeah, so he gets into the case where he's interested. He goes to the detective's house to talk to him, and it's when he's leaving the detective's house that he meets his daughter, Sandy, played by Laura Dern. And I'm sure you were hearing the Jurassic Park theme as she stepped out of the bush.
Yep, and I know she's done a lot more stuff with David Lynch than she's done with Spielberg, but she'll always be Dr. Sattler to me.
Hell, she's in Twin Peaks right now.
I know, and then she's in Wild at Heart, but that's the only other Lynch movie that's on my list of to watch is Wild at Heart. Just because Nicolas Cage gets a ape heart, and how do I not watch that by now?
So, and what I think is interesting is because this movie very much is again, it's about Jeff really looking. He's exploring the wild side, the darker side of the town, like in the darker side of himself, right? And that's why he's so curious. And I think it's a big deal that So they go up with this plan. He ends up working with Sandy, and they exchange information. This sort of little budding romance kind of kicks off, and she eventually, or they eventually, like, they have this whole ruse where he pretends to be an exterminator, and he gets into the apartment where Dorothy lives, and he steals a key so he can go back in later. And they go there. They see her perform. She sings Blue Velvet, and ultimately, I think the whole reason it's Blue Velvet and why she's always wearing that blue velvet robe is the idea that you're covering up the darker world with this nice, expensive material. It's like this is the sheen on top of it that's meant to make it look pretty. And that's not a comment about her specifically. It's just, but she does represent the darker side of the world, because I think Dorothy and Sandy are the two, kind of totem poles for Jeffrey's character, where he's sort of going through and between.
Well, she's the detective's daughter. She's still in high school. Like, she's very pure and innocent. And then you have Sandy, who's a nightclub singer.
And
there's some darkness.
And she's embroiled in all this underground world, and we'll get into that when we talk about what Frank's into. But I think it's interesting though that as much as she is she's the daytime girl, she's the one that sees during the day. She's more logical. She speaks sense. She talks about, maybe we shouldn't do this. This seems dangerous. She's speaking with concern, and it makes sense. But then Dorothy represents night. Like she's like the curiosity and the fascination with the dark come nighttime. And I think it's worth a lot that when he sneaks into that house and he's like watching her through he's in the closet because he doesn't get the warning, and he hides in the closet, and she's in the apartment, and she starts taking off her clothes and all that. He's a voyeur, and that's kind of who his character is. He's fascinated and curious. He wants to watch.
He's peeking into this dark world now that, because right now he's not part of it.
Yeah,
he's still on the outside. Even though he's right there.
And there's also a bit of a meta-commentary going on here, because I know Lynch has said multiple times that he sees movies as voyeurism. Like, you're kind of watching it because you want to see the secrets you're not meant to really see.
Yeah.
So there's kind of it's kind of that thing, that the idea that you go to the movie theatre and then you come out and it's, assuming you go during the day, like you go in the dark room, then you come back out and it's daylight again. That idea of that disconnect where you go into the dark world and experience whatever the story is that you went in to watch, and then you come back out. But she catches him. And again, we get to this surreal element where she doesn't react the way most people would react to catching someone in their closet. She gets very kind of, I'd say defensive, but that's maybe not quite the right word, because she kind of she forces him to strip. She goes in the offensive. She wants him to strip and feel like
she's holding a knife on him.
Yeah,
like
she feels unhinged. She feels like admittedly she has a right to react with some emotion here. Absolutely, but she feels extra unhinged with the way she's demanding things. Like typically,
she's very manic, and she's stuttering, and she's you can tell she's seen some stuff, almost like a state of shock.
You'd almost expect, like, I think most people, I mean, sure, they might pull out the knife to protect themselves, but they'd probably yell at them to get out, and they're going to call the police. So that would be the threat. But the subject of law enforcement is never even brought up. I don't think it's just you strip and make some strip, and it even gets a little bit sexual. Like this is almost exciting to her because she's part of this sort of this sexualized, almost perverse world, this underbelly. But of course, this is when Frank shows up, so he hides back in the closet, and then once again we get the first scene with Frank, and all of it, every single part of it, is told through this closet. We're through the blinds. Like everything we see in this scene is from Jeffrey's point of view, watching this take place. And Frank is this predator. He's demeaning. He is highly sexist. He forces her to do things. He threatens her. Between the phone call that Jeffrey overheard earlier and then this scene, it becomes very clear that he is kidnapped, at the very least, her son, and maybe her son and her husband. And he's clearly some sort of crime boss or something like that. All this stuff going on. And he, and again, one of the things that Frank does, and it's like a recurring theme in the movie, is that he keeps shoving the blue velvet robe in people's mouths. Yeah. And it's almost like eat the facade that you're presenting to the world. Eat the comfort of the daylight, because I am bigger than that.
Because that's what he thrives in.
He corrupts it.
Exactly, and because he's always doing it, it's never like it's like he's forcing them into it by forcing it down. If that makes sense. Like he's turning them from voyeurs into participants by doing that.
Yeah, he's making them eat the the lie that they've been living, or at least he's saying it's a lie, and then showing that this is this is fake. You're just like you. So this all goes on, and then once Frank leaves, Jeffrey comes out, and he's comforting, and that's kind of the end of it. But he ends up going back again, of course, and it proceeds to a more intimate sexual encounter where she wants him to stay. They end up having sex, all this stuff. But then once it starts to get hot and heavy, and he tries to ask, like, is there stuff wrong? Your son and your husband have been taken. Obviously, by this point, he's done some detective work. He's been taking photos, and of course, Sandy's been like, "Hey, like maybe you shouldn't be going any further with this. This is dangerous. This is again the voice of reason, the daylight, that side of it." Although I think it's interesting that her opening shot, despite the fact that she represents all this stuff, her opening shot isn't nighttime, and it is that mysterious like walk through the darkness into the light.
Yeah, but I take that as that's her leading him through the darkness. Like that's his to kind of go into Lost terminology. That's his constant. That's his tether to the light. Is Sandy.
I think I took that more as she equally is at least a little bit fascinated with the darker world, because almost because she has a boyfriend, right? She has a boyfriend her own age in high school, and he's college age. He's back from college, and I almost see her little fight on the wild side is the idea that she likes this older guy. She wants to for her this is kind of her step into darkness, and she she goes along with it to a point. She's helping with the exterminator thing, and it's exciting for a little bit. But then there's a point where it's starting to go too deep. But he keeps wanting to go.
She doesn't. She likes the excitement, but doesn't want the danger. Like once it starts getting dangerous, that's where she's like, "Hey, maybe we should stop."
Yeah.
But he's already too far in. He's a whole leg in that hole by that point.
Well, this is the thing. So they have sex. Jeffrey and Dorothy, and. At least they start to have sex, and she wants him to hit her, and he's like, "No, I'm not going to do that." Like this is like, why do you want that? And this is showing that this is kind of the world she's in. Like she's to the point where she wants the violence, she wants the other side of things, and she basically almost forced him to do it by kind of attacking him first. But he does. Yeah. In the first hit, you kind of, I mean, the way he hits her, maybe not, but the first hit at least is kind of self-defense. But then he does it again, and it's like, okay, he's succumbed to what she's wanted, and he's acting violently, and he feels a little bit detached after the sex is over, and that's when he's leaving, and there's a great shot actually before he's leaving, where there's just a shot looking down the stairwell, and he does it feels ominous, like danger's coming, even though you don't see anything, you just see the empty stairwell, but it's nighttime, it's foreboding, and sure enough, Frank sees him leaving the apartment, and kind of being affectionate,
bad news.
Yeah, with Dorothy, and right from that moment, it's like shit. You feel this fear, and Jeffrey is like Jeffrey throughout this whole scene and throughout the scenes that follow, where they force him into the car, they take him to this guy Ben, who seems to be like some sort of other crime boss, drug dealer type character, and then the ultimate kind of threatening out of the work site or wherever it is they go, the pits, and throughout all this, he is very quiet. He is shell-shocked. He can't respond. He really does feel like he's being bullied, almost.
Yeah, he's very timid.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it, timid. And I think that this is like, okay, you've been into this darker world, and now you're going to see what's actually in there. I think it's telling that he gets beat up at the end of this, and we'll talk about more of those scenes, but the very next day he's like crying in bed, but the funny thing is he's not crying about all the threats afterwards. He's actually crying about the sexual encounter. He's crying about what he did, what he kind of became for a moment, and it's kind of like, and a lot of Lynch's work, a lot of his films have these similar themes of like two sides of the same person, whether it be actual duplicates or just like two sides of the same coin kind of idea. And that's very much what this movie kind of is for him. It's like the light and the dark side, and he kind of veered into the dark for a little bit, and he got more of a taste than he was bargaining for, and he's realised that that's not really who he is. It's not really what he wants to be. Which is why for the rest of the movie, when he goes to see Dorothy, he's trying to help, he's trying to do the right thing. And then ultimately, after this, it's when he tells Sandy some of it, and he goes to her dad and like gives him the photos and all that. Which is when we find out that one of the guys in the photos is actually his partner from the police station. So
he's a cop.
Yeah,
because there's this whole scene that we see as Jeffrey. I think he's walking by or he's watching it on the news, and we see like something bad had gone down at this like apartment, and
it was the place he was staking out and taking photos.
yeah, and he's listening to I think it's the cops over talk about what had gone down, and it just shows kind of it hints that it could be Frank and his crew and just how dangerous they really are because they really don't have a method. They just cause chaos.
Agents of Chaos, yeah. Agents of
Yeah,
Chaos.
that's them. That's Frank. Because again, by this point in the movie, I've had like 4 "What the hell am I watching?" movie like moments. So,
Let me
'cause
guess.
there's a first,
One of the first ones is probably when Gas first pulls out the oxygen mask, and he's like,
yeah,
he's like, yeah.
yeah, and I'm just like, and then he starts try helping her, and I'm just like, what? Okay, this is not what I was expecting from Frank. Like all the stuff that I've heard about this guy, this is not. I mean, granted, a lot of the stuff that comes later makes me laugh, just because, there's that scene in Drive where that happens in the elevator, and I don't want to spoil it for people
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
that haven't seen it. I remember being in the theater. I didn't know how else to react but to laugh because it was just like a release of tension. My wife looked at me like, "How are you laughing at that?" I'm like, "I don't know."
You're a
That's
serial
the only thing
killer
I had.
deep down. That's
Yeah.
that's the answer to it.
And so I felt a lot of that here where I shouldn't be laughing at Frank, but I don't know how else to react.
No,
And
I get you. Obviously, again, it's enough that you feel this fear, because you see him in the club when they go to see him. The second night they go to see her perform at the club, and he's in the
yep,
club and he sees Frank watching, and it's like, okay, he's also ever present in her life. He's not just showing up randomly. But so the whole scene, as soon as he shows up and he sees Jeffrey, and you feel that fear. He's in the car, and these friends. One of whom is Pete from Twin Peaks is one of them, but you won't know. But I'm
okay,
just for others.
yeah.
And also Brad Dourif, who's the voice of Chucky, is one of them.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Interesting tidbit for you. And they're messing with him. They take him to this Ben's place, who's played by Dean Stockwell, who's a pretty good actor actually. He's in Paris, Texas, in Battlestar Galactica, and a bunch of stuff. And again, it's this long, prolonged scene where you're not really sure what they're going to do with him. He's been kind of dragged around. They sort of confirm here that indeed Dorothy's son is kidnapped and is behind
Yep.
closed doors here, and it's almost like I think this whole portion of the movie is like much like Jeffrey's experiencing it. We're with him experiencing this underworld for the first time and seeing just what this part of the town is like at night time. Like, who are these people? What do they get up to? And like how scary it is, how depraved it kind of feels. And it does feel terrifying when they eventually stop him. Like, it feels like every time he even looks at Frank or he says something that he doesn't want him to say, Frank shouts, he overreacts, he gets threatening.
Yep.
He's doing it constantly. It's like a
Well,
running
before
thing.
they go, before they go into the building, he has this famous line, at least famous to me, where they're talking about beer, and the guy tells him he drinks Heineken, and he just overreacts and tells him to drink Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Do you know what? I'm curious, like,
Yeah.
because obviously you could argue that there's some product placement here, because he really likes Heineken, he's always pouring Heineken, and then,
Yeah.
but then this moment is like, the bad guy's like, no, that's shit, don't drink that horse piss, drink this one,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering, like, okay, which beer company paid more?
Paid
Like,
for it, yeah.
yeah, like, who came out on top out of that? I mean, I
And
guess it's still Heineken, because it's the bad guy who likes the other one, but,
Yeah. Well, see, and again, how I know through this is that same podcast, they used that Pabst Blue Ribbon as like as a joke, because a lot of hipsters drink the Pabst Blue Ribbon anymore. Because from what I understand, as a non-drinker, it's not that good. It's just super cheap, So it was always meant like. So on this podcast, it became a signifier of someone being a hipster. You play the Pabst Blue Ribbon drop,
Okay.
but it's the way that Frank yells it here and how forceful he is that, like, again, I'm laughing because I don't know how else to react. And I feel it's how Jeffrey is because he's watching this go down just before, because he doesn't know where they're going,
no?
and it's right before they go into Ben's, and then you walk into Ben's and that dreamlike surrealism comes in. I guess that's two words that mean the same, but they walk in and I can't get the topography or geography of this apartment. It feels much bigger than it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's an extra room with just two people that don't move, that are just sitting there. And the whole thing made me uneasy. And I guess that's the point.
Yeah,
Because you want to feel what Jeffrey's feeling. And then they start singing, or I don't know if the guy's singing it or if he's lip syncing it.
I think he's lip syncing it.
Song?
He's lip syncing it because it's just playing on the radio. He's
Gotcha. Dream logic, man. Like it's just going but yeah, I felt definitely uneasy here because at this point, Frank can do anything. We've seen him do some bad stuff, and I'm feeling fear for poor Jeffrey because he's in over his head.
It's funny actually because I feel like you're talking about feeling a lot of things, and I think that's very much the point. It's almost like you don't like Lynch that much, partly because it's kind of surreal, but you don't just like feeling a lot of the things he makes you feel. But you have to acknowledge that he does achieve all those feelings.
He does.
He gets them all.
It's like Old Boy. I'll never take away which director was that?
Park Chan-wook.
Park, yeah. Like, fantastic director. I am never watching that movie again, ever. I don't like thinking about that movie, but because it made me feel gross. And I'd much rather turn on, Spielberg's my go-to guy. I'd much rather go to early Spielberg and feel that action and movement and, and kind of not shut off my brain.
You want warmth.
I talk about Jaws for hours.
Yeah, you want warmth. Yes, no, I get you.
Exactly.
You want the comfort blanket, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes to be challenged is good.
But
challenge is good.
But see, and that's my point here is I kind of want to go out of my comfort zone. Once I started going through film school, and I realized there's more out there. That's Kubrick. I'm still not a huge Kubrick fan, but I try to watch what I can. Even though he's not my cup of tea, because I want to see these type of things, and see where the value is in them. I guess.
So the end of this night of terror, this night of like seeing what the underbelly of this town is like, this trip in the dark side, it ends with a very I don't know if there's much more threatening stuff in this world than Dennis Hopper screaming at you as he's putting on lipstick frantically. Coming at you, like it's because you don't know what he's going to do. And again, it has that kind of, there's a lot of sexual perversion going on throughout this movie. We're not really sure, like, is it about to turn sexual? Anytime he kisses him, and it feels like, and it is kind of this thing where he's saying like, you're my bitch now, like you don't be a friendly neighbor to her, or I will kill you. You're lucky you're not dead already. And the way I read this is like, Frank is the sort of person who will just kill people left and right. But I think at least at this stage with what Jeffrey's done or what you've seen Jeffrey do, he actually enjoys or gets off on scaring him more than he does just killing him. The idea that he's out there and is terrified of him is actually more satisfying to him than just killing him.
And that's how I always read the Joker, right? When you read Batman, I feel Frank Booth's very Joker-esque there. He could just kill Jeffrey, but he's gonna have some fun with it because life's a joke, and this is the punchline. And yeah, so as he's putting on the lipstick and stuff, I was definitely getting Joker vibes, and that's just the comic book nerd in me. And I definitely don't think that's what Lynch was going for, but I guess anything that resonates.
Well, I think it
helps.
I think the whole scene, because you got the other woman who's dancing on top of the car the entire time, and again, it gives it this extra weird feeling to it. It just isn't quite right. And I think if nothing else, like Lynch is very good at making things feel unique. And like even though we're seeing the convict boyfriend or abuser, threaten the good boyfriend, in a thriller. We've seen this scene tons of times, but none of them feel like this. This is a whole new undertone to it. There's a whole feeling here that's not usually present, and he's good at doing that. But like I say, all these experiences. This is his dipping his toes into the wild side, and I don't think he likes what he sees. He doesn't like the sort of person he had to become in that world. So that's why he's crying the next day. That's why he's trying to do the right thing, give the detective the photographs, do things by the book, to the point where he takes Sandy to this dance, and that's where they finally sort of consummate a little bit and like admit they love each other and kiss, and it's this very sweet, again, very idealistic, feels very 50s Americana, all that kind of thing. But when they're driving
back to the Future vibes, which was only what, 2 years old at this point.
That's true.
By the time this movie comes out, so Enchantment Under the Sea dance.
and they're driving back, and this other car starts chasing. He's worried it's Frank. Like he's immediately worried that
Yeah.
his
I was worried it was Frank.
as am I. At least in the
Yeah.
first viewing, and you're worried because it's like, oh man, he stepped into that dark world, and it's clung to him. Like he can't get away from it, and you think it's Frank coming to like just kill him anyway, because why not? And it turns out it's actually it's Sandy's boyfriend, and he wants to be it. But this is when Dorothy shows up in front of his house, fully nude. And she's out of it. She's delirious. She's saying crazy things. She wants help. She's clearly been abused by Frank. She's got bruises and scratch marks on her. She's definitely in need of help. And this is when the world's clear, because obviously Sandy's not been aware that there's been some kind of relationship between them. This is all sort of new to her, and she reacts, and it's kind of like the two sides of him colliding here in the one scene. And as she's learning, like she sees what he's doing is kind of right because he's trying to help, but she's upset because there seems to be some sort of connection because Dorothy's clinging to him and hugging him and saying you're my special friend, these kind of things. And it's this again, the consequences of him dipping his toes into this underside, this dark side of the world, are here. This is the consequence of it. This is the fallout.
It's like the dark side's embracing him now.
To an extent, I would say like he's shying away from it, but certainly there's just it's just you don't get away from it guilt free, and that's why you try and keep things in the light. You try and keep things at least why most good people do, at least anyway. And of course she gets sent to the hospital, and that's all fine. And the thing is, it cuts immediately to a scene where he's on the phone with Sandy, and she forgives him, and like they still love each other, and it's kind of this nice idea that she understands what, at least to the extent that he had to go through that experience, and now she can forgive him because she is a good person, and she understands that he's also a good person. Like no matter what he kind of did, no matter what path he kind of went down, and I think part of the big thing for me is I think Jeffrey sees himself in Frank. I think he sees Frank as a warning sign of what he could maybe become, and it's partly why he is so like repelled by the idea of hitting her during sex, because he sees himself kind of becoming like Frank.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a slippery slope there, but I wasn't picking up on that's who he could become.
It's because I think Frank even at one point has a line where he says, "You're just like me."
Okay.
And it's why, and it's when you said earlier that when he saw Jeffrey for the first time, he's the predator and he sees Jeffrey as the prey, and he does. But I think the funny thing is that up until that point, Jeffrey is being the predator. He's hiding in the closet. He's doing all these things. He's getting excitement because he's pretending to be the
Exterminator.
Exterminator. Thank you. He's pretending to be the exterminator. He's sneaking into the house. He's getting kind of a thrill out of this. He's excited by the mystery, and like he has kind of gone on that path where he is finding. At least this is much more male than what Frank is, but it's starting to feel perverse. Like he's getting off on the thrill of it to the point where he might eventually become someone like that. And I think he sees that reflection, and that's what kind of, the fear of that is what turns him around. Again, that comes back to the hitting her when she wants him to. He doesn't want to be that, and he doesn't want to be like Frank. So it all goes down. Of course, at this point we get some scenes of it. There's a shootout going on. Like Frank's, the cops have cornered him.
Yeah.
At this point, detective's seen the photos. He knows his partner's probably, involved in all this, but all this is going down, and he gets worried. So he goes to the apartment once again to see Dorothy, and in there he sees the corrupt partner standing there, basically dead. I mean, he's not quite dead yet. He's still standing, but he's bleeding. He's just standing there, kind of comatose with blood pouring from him. And then you have what I can only assume is the husband character, Dorothy's husband, who's got blue velvet shoved in his mouth. So Frank did this. This is part of the world building.
That's his calling card.
Yeah, but as Frank's responsible for all of this as soon as you walk in that room. And again, it's building this suspense and this dread of how powerful he is and how terrifying he is.
Yeah.
And he realizes this, and there's this great moment where and it's kind of the completion of his arc as a character, where he looks at this and goes, you know what? I'm going to let the police do this. And he turns around and goes to leave. And then it's just the fact that he's already there and Frank is on the way. So when he's trying to leave, he figures out the guy earlier on who had the mustache and he was well dressed was actually Frank in disguise, and he's coming up to get him. He uses the police radio from the corrupt cop to call for help, but of course Frank, as established earlier on, has a police radio as well. So he tries to trick him. He's in the closet once again, which I loved. I loved that he returns back to where he originally was in this apartment. This is back in the closet, and he uses it to his advantage. And of course, we have a little bit of suspense. And I love how long and drawn out it is. I love Frank, getting angry, kicking down the doors, like, where are you? And then he figures it out. But we've already seen Jeffrey get the gun, so we know he can defend himself. And it's very well thought out in a sort of geography level, where it's very well staged, where you understand where the characters are, the geography makes sense, and it's all building up. Even just the image of the guy standing there dead in the room, like that wide shot of the room is just...
I'll never forget it.
It's nightmarish. Like, you walk in, it's just this... Again, it's like it's evil, but because he's standing up and the TV's like on, but it's smashed and it's kind of hissing, it's like there's just this quality to it that feels ethereal beyond just the surface level dread. It's fantastic. It's kind of one of those things where Lynch is just so good at making it feel more like a nightmare. Not it's one thing to show an awful thing happen and have the dread feel real and have it feel realistic and awful and have the impact, but it's another thing to make it feel like, no, this is the end of the world. Like, it just has that feeling to it on top of it. So it's great stuff. And of course, the climax happens. He shoots Frank, which, by the way, I love the gunshot. It's proper gory, head explosion, all the rest of it, and so proper good blast. And detective comes in, so it's all over now. And that's where the movie ends, and to a point we get a little epilogue scene, and we end the movie how we started. We start with an ear, and we come out of Jeffrey's ear, and we see the white picket fence. We see the fireman again waving past, and his dad's up, his dad's better, and they're all playing happy family. He seems to be in a long-term relationship with Sandy, and everything's fine. But there's this bird eating like a beetle, a little beetle thing, and it's like, yeah, everything's fine, but the underworld's still there.
Right.
Like, it's always going to be there. You just have to...
You have to look for it.
Yeah.
And
or don't look for it, as the case may be, to stay sane.
Exactly.
Yeah, stay away from it, yeah.
But, I mean, that's the realest commentary you can get, I think, out of a movie, because that's the world we live in. Like, you can get bogged down by thinking about how much bad there is in the world, by forgetting that there still is good.
I mean, because we even see there's a small moment as well in this montage where you see that Dorothy's got her son back, and she looks like she's okay. It looks like she's patched herself up. She looks like she's a functioning member of society, and it's like, okay, good kind of won out. And maybe it was, arguably it was Jeffrey being good ultimately that led to that happening. He gave the police information. He led to all this, and I think you can almost argue this movie's on top of all the social commentary, on top of the idea of the good and the bad and the dreamlike stuff. You can almost argue this is a coming of age story for Jeffrey, where he dips his toes in this darker world and realizes it's not really for him. Like, sure, it's fascinating as a voyeur, but once you're actually part of it, it is terrifying, and you're on a slippery slope, and he comes back out of it. So,
easy, yeah. Man, again, there are scenes in this I will never forget. So, good on you, Lynch. It's also washed out any chance of me wanting to watch Twin Peaks. Because it was like...
Oh, Twin Peaks is way more accessible than even
this.
Is it? The old season, certainly.
Even the new season.
The new season, maybe not as much, but the old seasons are very consumable.
Yeah, so... Yeah.
Matt, the old season aired on ABC, right? Okay.
I know.
They're easy going.
So I tell the story that my dad going to go see the movie after being invested in the show.
Yeah, Fire Walk With Me.
Yeah, just was not having it. Was not a fan. So I don't think he knew what he was getting into. But
it's interesting because obviously there wasn't a lot of fighting on this. Kind of the point of this show was to make us like kind of settle differences if the occasion called for it. But clearly this movie worked for you at least enough that you're not...
Well, at the end of the day, it's still a well-made movie, and it's still pretty accessible, at least to me. Like, had we done this about Mulholland Drive, I feel there would have been a lot more fighting. Just because that's way more Lynch than this is. Like exponentially more Lynch. Or even Lost Highway, I guess, that's him, right?
Yes, him.
I remember I came into my friend's house and he was watching that, and I felt like I had walked into something different. So I left the room and came back, and it was still on the TV. Went, okay, that's a real thing on the TV right now. So, but you hit the nail on the head where I don't mind feeling things in movies, but I like to feel good because movies to me are an escape, and so I tend to go more towards the Spielberg and Donner era of filmmaking than Lynch and Refn.
Well, sure, but like, let me think. Recent stuff like War of the Apes is not exactly all good feels.
No, but there is like, I would say the first one that's what hooked me, right?
Okay.
So once you can hook me in with the feels, because like Caesar, you make me fall in love with an ape that's not really there, and that's all Andy Serkis and Weta in the direction.
I mean,
so by the time that third one hits and it gets remarkably darker, then yeah, I'm okay with feeling those things. But when you hit me with it right out the gate, I almost like there was a couple times where I was like, yo, I could just shut this off. But the fact that this was kind of my idea, I was like, no, I can't do that. I have a duty.
You can't. Yeah. This is the idea.
Yeah.
It's going to be a monthly thing, which it's going to be different types of movies, obviously, and sometimes it'll be ones that I hate. Those will be very different, though. I imagine. Yeah. Just thinking about it, but
the not so much discussion with those going. Well, I like it. I like, I know Pete hates it, which makes me like it a little more. Like,
Luckily, I don't think you like Sweeney Todd too much, do you?
I do not.
Good.
That's the greatest thing I've ever done. I maintain. But there are Tim Burton movies I really do like that are going to get entered into this pick.
The patrons still need to vote. They'll get two options. Yep. One will be a Pete Love and Matt hate, and one will be a Matt Love and Pete hate. It'll be the idea. So, if nothing else, I think this was an interesting conversation, and I want to emphasise that if you don't like David Lynch, if you don't like his style, that's okay. I think the point of this discussion, at least for me, was not to tell Matt he's wrong for not liking it. It was simply to just show that there should be an appreciation for it, even if it's not your thing. Like it's just not like some people look at David Lynch movies and the way he tells stories and go, "This is just weird and stupid and boring and it doesn't make sense. It's just the ravings of a madman," and it's definitely not. There is a vision there.
There's a method to his madness. The fact that I picked up on, and again, so I'm not like the average film goer that doesn't pick up on subtleties. Like I love Nolan movies because of the little things he throws in there. Like we can have discussions about Inception and The Prestige and what those all mean, right? But when you start getting to the dreamlikeness, like me and Pete fought over Refn's Only God Forgives, which is a movie I still can't stand. Right?
Hell, even people who like surreal stuff don't like Only God Forgives.
Right. So, but the fact that in Blue Velvet I could easily pick up on the noir stuff, and I could pick up on the idealized 50s setting that intros it.
And that's the point, like, just to add on to that, like, even when you see the ambulance at one point, it's not like, ambulance in the 80s didn't look like that. This was like a 1950s Ghostbusters looking ambulance.
Yeah. And outside of how some of the characters talk, it feels like a 50s noir. And then you get to Frank, who definitely does not feel like any noir villain I've ever seen.
No, I think that's the point. It starts off with this kind of detective thing. The detective's very friendly. It's playing on the idea of this classical noir story, and then it subverts it and perverts it and adds all these extra elements into it. Because I think up until a point, up until Frank enters, it's supposed to feel kind of comfortable. I mean, there's some tension. There's like when he's sneaking in with the as the exterminator and all that stuff. Like there's some suspense there and it's fun. But it's not until Frank shows up where it's like, oh no, this is like disturbing. Like there's something else going on here.
Exactly. And it breaks away from that 50s idealized, which again is the point of the entire movie. And so I like that, and I'll never say that Lynch is a madman because even Mulholland Drive, which I'm not a big fan of, there's a story there that he wanted to tell.
In fact, me and Connor did an influx on Mulholland Drive a few months ago.
Now, what you say about Inland Empire being way less accessible, I'm just like, that's a hard pass on that one.
I need to rewatch Inland Empire, but my one viewing of it, like 10 years ago, all I remember is it being a descent into madness.
Yeah, see? And again, if it's a descent into madness that is planned, then good on him. Like, that's a skill, I think. where you can make chaos look like order and order look like chaos. That I don't think everybody has. So I can appreciate him as a director, just not my kind. Like you won't find him in my top 5 ever, probably. Unless give him Doctor Strange and let's see what he does. Like
It's funny you say give him something, because I was actually a couple of scenes in this new season of Twin Peaks made me say, you know what? I mean, Lynch is not the sort of guy to do. I mean, I know he did Dune, but that kind of didn't go that well.
no,
But he's not the type of guy that typically will do properties. I don't ever expect him to do one. But if he did, if you were told me, okay, David Lynch is going to direct something based on something else, what would you pick? Silent Hill would be my first thing. I think Lynch has never done an outright horror movie. There's elements of horror in a lot of his stuff.
Yeah.
And some of his stuff is downright disturbing, but he's never done a straight horror movie. And I feel like the themes he plays with and the imagery that he plays with, especially some of the stuff that he's done this season of Twin Peaks, would lend very well to something like Silent Hill. I just thought of it because you mentioned,
I got you.
give him Doctor Strange, but
Yeah.
but no.
But cool. So that's Overload. Like, and hopefully we give you some good options going forward, so we can be a little bit more lively. But again, this was toe in the water. I wanted to pick something that I truly did want to watch, and it's not like I don't want to have to feel like I have to watch it, even though at certain parts I did feel like that. You know, there was a need that I needed to fulfill here.
Oh, we'll get to those after about a year when we've started to really struggle for ideas for the votes, so they'll get wacky.
Well, that's when I quit, Pete, because there's certain movies that are on my banned list.
There'll be no quitting. There'll be no quitting. That's one point. Is most of our votes on Patreon will have 4 options. This one will probably only have 2, because I feel like this one's going to be harder to think of options, so we don't burn through too many in one go. We'll start off with just 2 per vote. So you can expect the first vote up probably sometime before the end of August, and then we'll see.
Yeah, because this is monthly.
Yeah, it's monthly.
Everybody.
Yeah, this is a monthly idea. The idea is that we don't do gigawatts every week, which is what me and Matt do when we do new movies. So this is something we can do as well, and it gives the patrons another thing to vote for, which is good because it gives that a bit more value. But everyone gets the episode, everyone gets to enjoy it. But yeah, so there you go. That is 1.21 Overload, the pilot episode of a new monthly show, which is the idea we're toying with, is doing a couple of monthly things that are not something we have to commit to as often, but something we can do to like spice up the schedule a little bit and have something a little bit different.
Off the beaten path is how I've been thinking of it. You know?
So that is Blue Velvet. Obviously, there's probably some things we've missed, some interpretations you'd want to throw in there. By all means, in the comments, let us have them.
Yeah.
Let us have them. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, as we've mentioned a couple of times, head over to patreon.com/mailedfuzztv and see what's available over there. But otherwise, guys, that is us. Keep watching movies, and we'll see you next time.